Yeah, so we're thanks for that. We're going to move on to our session put on by the Skandacor service team. So let's call them the guys behind the scenes that fix the things that we break and keep our customers up and running. So I'd like to introduce Mr. David Maynard here in the U.S. office and Mr. Daryl Drever on the Canadian panel. Over to you, Daryl.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's great to see everybody. As we've said, been a great 3 days, and just really appreciate everybody showing interest in this time. So my name is Daryl. Some of you have probably touched base with me, talked to me on the phone, got emails from me, and then my right-hand man there, my great wingman, David, down in the Rochester office, probably had a chance to meet up with us. We head up the service, technical support, and service side of the business here. We've got a couple of other unsung wingmen here that you maybe haven't seen quite so much of, probably heard from. I'd like to just mention them briefly. Our great parts assistant, Carla. You've probably heard from her. You won't seen her much, but she's working tirelessly behind the scenes, supporting us. And then the newest member of the team, not able to be on today, Enrique, based out of our Fresno office. Great guy, comes on board with a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and a commitment to the integrity and quality that Skandacor has become known for. So we're really excited to incorporate him into the team here. So just want to touch on this session called Keeping Your Shop Running Smoothly. And one of the overall focuses is going to be on preventative maintenance. So we will be doing a question and answer session as well. If any of you guys on the call today have questions, just type them into the box there and we'll try and answer them for you. So just like to turn it over to Dave now. He's going to give us a bit of an overview on what preventative maintenance is and touch on a couple of key things that we find are weaknesses directly related to the printing industry. Over to you, Dave.
So preventative maintenance is something that people don't think about a lot when it comes to machines and equipment, and it's something that is actually very important sometimes, well, all the time, because if you don't do your preventative maintenance, then your machine goes down when you least expect it, and then you're trying to get a technician in there to service it and make repairs. Whereas if you do the preventative maintenance, you can actually prolong the life of your machine and put your repairs often to a time when you're ready to do them compared to when they just happen. Some examples that I've seen in the field is one of the things that the printing industry doesn't give a lot of thought to is compressed air. A lot of machines out there use compressed air. They use air solenoids and valves and everything else, and they don't drain their systems, or they don't have a dryer. If they have a big in-house system, they don't have a dryer on them. And what I've seen in the past is that not maintaining that system, not doing the preventative maintenance on your compressed air systems can cause the rest of your machines to go down. Be it a solenoid valve that's just not working all the time. Sometimes it turns the switch on and off. Sometimes it doesn't turn the switch on and off. Where if you clean those systems regularly, drain your compressor weekly, make sure there's no moisture in it, it really helps with those systems working, and it's a small cost to doing better and more efficient business. That compressed air is kind of actually a little sensitive subject for me because I worked at a company prior to my time here with Skandacor, and when I walked into the company, they didn't have, their system of draining the compressed air was that a guy had to remember to go over and drain the valves every day. And what we did for that company was we took and we put automatic time drain valves at the ends of the lines where they truncated and at the compressor itself. And by doing that, we spent maybe a couple $100 into the system, and it completely eliminated that person having to remember to go do that. And we just had the air was clean, it was dry, it was filtered, and the problems in equipment shutting down because of the compressed air just drop right out of the bottom. We would find that shutters on UV units wouldn't open and close. Solenoids on valves that operate levers and stuff wouldn't open. One of our machines out there that we have right now is the Q-Topics. If those little solenoids get a little bit of dirt in them or moisture corrosion, sometimes they don't work, and then the valves don't open, and the roll doesn't go down, and then the very next time you turn the machine on, it does work, and you're standing there, your operator's standing there scratching his head going, why is this not working for me? Why is this being so intermittent? And so that's just one example of how the preventative maintenance of one system can help your whole production be more efficient going forward. So that's just one of the ways the PM can really help you, and it transfers into all sorts of the machines you use day to day. So Daryl's going to talk a little bit more about some of the experiences he's had with the preventative maintenance end of it.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. That's a great overview there on compressed air. Do you think it would be a good idea just to mention that moisture is a product of compression? So it doesn't actually really matter where you are. You might say, I'm out in the middle of Arizona, or I'm out in the middle of Saskatchewan and it's dry as can be. But unfortunately, if you've got a compressor, you are making moisture. And so it's just as critical, no matter whether you're sitting in a high humid area like New York State or whether you're in a dry area, that moisture is critical to be dealt with, isn't it? So I just like to move on. One other thing that's come up, and it's just as a direct result of this COVID-19 missile that's been fired at people, and the integrity that these shop owners and managers carry towards their employees of trying to keep their equipment clean, and comes up as to cleaning of touch screens. And great to see that people are really concerned about their staff. But the one problem with cleaning touch screens is you cannot get chemical cleaners, or if you get chemical cleaners directly on a touch screen, it can be lethal to the screen. And quite often what we see with some of these staff that are cleaning, in their integrity, they're trying to do a great job, trying to be thorough. They take their spray bottle and they go right across the touch screen. What happens is that water runs down the touch screen, runs in behind the plastic panel on the outside, runs over the edge of the touch screen and soaks into the touch sensitive membrane that is underneath that glass panel that you actually touch with your finger. And it soaks into that membrane and it becomes a touch point, just like as if you're touching your finger there and holding it steady, and it locks the screen. And unfortunately, it's almost impossible to try and take that screen apart. Many failures of people that have tried to take those touch screens apart and repair them and ended up completely killing the screen. So the trick to that is to take your spray it. Don't use a bleach or don't use a bleach cleaner. That's an absolute out. But use a cleaner and spray it onto a rag. Just dampen the rag. Then just wipe the screen gently and immediately dry it with a dry cloth so that none of that moisture can run down over the edge. So it's just a touch about cleaning the touch screens there. And moving on, the other thing I wanted to talk about is a problem that I often find when I do preventative maintenance. It's going into a preventative maintenance for me in many cases is going into a shop, pulling off panels, looking at belts and gears and sensors. And you know, honestly, the single biggest thing that I find is that sort of top right quadrant of that 11 piece of paper that didn't come out of the machine 4 months ago when an employee had a jam up on it. And it's gone down into the electrical area or sat down beside the motor, and it's just ready to tangle up in the sprocket and wrap itself around a sensor and take it out. And it's without fail, the thing that I find the most is pieces of paper that have gone into areas where they shouldn't have, because the people didn't realize they'd gone missing, or maybe in their urgency to get a job done had a jam up. they cleared the jam out, they pushed the start button, the machine started going again fine. They say, hey, great, I'm good to run, and they just keep running, and then they get the job done, and it's out of sight, out of mind. So there's things like that that could just be lurking unseen that are ready to just take your machine down. And just a simple scheduled preventative maintenance call can take care of that. So Dave's gonna hand it back over to Dave, and he's just going to go over some of the ways that we can actually support you in those preventative maintenance calls and technical support.
So we do technical support where, you know, you call us up and we get you on the schedule, and one of us techs will be out there and do your shop and stuff. But sometimes we can minimize that travel time and that time in your office or in your building and stuff with some video support. We do video installs and we do video technical support, where you can call us and we can set up a time where we can get you on a Zoom meeting or you know, even what's the one on the iPhone, Bob? I forget. FaceTime meeting or something, and you get you right on a call, right out at your machine. Very often I'll ask a customer if they're having a problem to send me a picture of their problem or a video of the problem they're having, and not all the time, but a good number of the times we're able to solve that problem right then and there and get them back up and going. Whereas if we didn't do it that way, it might require a couple-hour drive to the customer's site to be there, and some time on site, and they have to, and time to schedule that whole setup and that service call. So we like to provide that video service as a option for customers so that we can get you up as quick as possible. One of the other things that I wanted to touch on about making a service call go as smooth as it can is getting us the correct information. I know you're in a hurry, your machine's down, you're frustrated and stuff, and we send you a service authorization and you put down on the machine, yeah, it's my punch and it's broken. Okay, well, I'm going to end up going on to that service call and stuff, and I'm going to get there. The problem's going to be is I'm going to get there, and first you got 4 punches, so now I got to go find whoever has the broken punch, and I got to say, okay, which punch is broken? What's it doing? And then I find that the punch is broken because it got a bad belt. Okay, now I have to travel back to my office, get the belt, come back to your office. There's added travel time, there's added downtime of the machine and everything else. Whereas if you had called me and said, hey, or you put on the service authorization, hey, this is my Rhino Tough punch, it's serial number this, this, and this, I can look it up in our systems and say, and you tell me it's not moving, I can say, pretty good chances that's probably a belt. And I'll come equipped with that belt. Or, you know, I will come equipped with the common broken parts on certain machines so that we can get you back up and going in one service call. And we know what we're walking into, which helps us serve you faster and better. So that's why when we ask for that information on those service authorizations, it's real important that we can get it, because it just makes the service call better for you. We want to make it a good experience, and we want to be your wingman out there helping you in the field. So I think those are the quick things that we wanted to talk about and cap on. So I think that now if we have any open questions on the floor.
Just while we're waiting for some questions to come in, Dave, going back to your video support, the saying is a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, short video of the machine running or not running and showing the error code is worth a book.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's, you know, with technology today, grab your phone, shoot a picture, shoot a quick video, and you're going to help these guys help you.
And we're not expecting you to be a cinematographer. We all understand that, you know, not everybody's super handy and everything, but if you can get us just an image of what it's doing, or hey, this part's not working right, or something like that, it is just tremendously helpful. And again, it might be that we start with that. Okay, yeah, I'm going to have to come there. That's really broken. But it helps us assess the situation too.
And it'd just be good for our clients to tap on the resource of you guys being the wingman, that they don't just have to, expect, okay, he's got to come out. Where you often can resolve things right over the phone, can't we?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
with the experience that we have on such a wide variety of equipment, the incredible team that you guys can often.
prime example is I talked to a customer today, actually. We've done repairs on the machine recently, before COVID. And then she just called in and said, hey, we just got back up and the machine's we just put new laminate in the machine and the machine's not running. I said, okay, well, that's a good start. You just put new laminate in the machine, but it was running before that? Yep. Says, okay, well, I'm gonna guess that it's not the motor that you sent the machine in to have replaced, because you said it was just running. So we did some more talking and stuff, and I says, I'm pretty sure you've probably got a safety switch somewhere that's not latched. And come to find out, they couldn't find their service manual or their operator's manual in the machine, so I sent over the operator's manual, and as far as I know, they're up and going. And it's all handled with just a simple conversation to save them a service call and travel time and downtime, waiting for us to get there and whatnot. So it's a really good example of why it's important to make those calls, ask those questions.
Looks like we got a question, John, if you want to pop up in the Q&A.
So we got a question here that's come in from the audience. Says, what do you suggest to minimize static in the shop or at the laminator?
Couple of things we've suggested is we've found a really good static string that you can actually drape onto your material. I know we supply that here. It really does work well. The other thing is keeping the humidity up in your shop, keeping the humidity correct in your shop. That's another thing a lot of people don't understand is that, well, my shop's air conditioned. Okay, it's air conditioned, but it's not necessarily climate controlled or humidity conditioned. And so the humidity affects your paper greatly. I mean, you can walk in, some people will say, oh, I just brought this out of the back, print room, and they got this paper in here. And, well, yeah, it's been sitting out in the warehouse for 4 days in the hot, humid weather. We've had rain for 6 days, and that stuff's going to be, glued together almost. And on the other hand, it's been sitting in the back corner of an air-conditioned office or something. It's going to be a lot drier than you might want it. So the humidity can really affect how your static adheres your sheets together when you're trying to feed them through the machines.
And we've had a lot of experience around, obviously, lamination being one of our primary wheelhouse areas, and moisture conditioning of the paper is so important, not only from the feeding, but when we're doing lamination in Sleep Pro, we can have dramatic effects, positive and negative, just because of that humidity factor in the sheet, can't we?
Yeah, you get an overly moist sheet or damp sheet, for lack of a better term, and you start feeding it through those hot rollers, but you're sealing it on both sides with laminate. That moisture's got to go somewhere. You'll get to the end of your sheet and you'll have a great big bubble on the end of your sheet where all that moisture tried to escape before it got sealed. Just like a Ziploc baggie almost.
Yeah. And we've had, some clients where we've seen actual moisture running off the rollers when they've been running.
Yeah.
Because of the dew point and the high humidity. Yeah. So it's very important that not only just air condition, but the importance, isn't it, of the stock that you're going to be running has been climatized, well in advance before you're processing it. Not like when you say the sheets have come from a warehouse and now they're quickly trying to be run in a conditioned environment, but those sheets are everything but conditioned.
It can take up to 48 hours in the same environment to condition it to the environment, depending on the, if you got a little stack here, it might be fine for tomorrow, but you got a whole bat of paper that just came out, or that came off your press 2 weeks ago and was sitting on the back of your warehouse. You're trying to run it through your Falcon and you're scratching your head because nothing's working right. Well, that could be why.
Going back to the static days, you talked about static string, but there's a couple other things that I actually had a question yesterday about trying to identify where static starts. Right?
Yes.
So taking care of it on the back of the press when it's coming out. If you have kinetic potential energy in that stack, as soon as you move that sheet, you're going to basically activate the static. So I know that I've worked with Dave a little bit on some actual powered ionizing bars as well, DC controlled. So static is one of those things that seems mysterious, but there is methods to overcome it.
You think along with all of that, John and Dave, what you guys have said is great, but we also deal with a lot of little shops that unfortunately don't have static control or conditioning at their fingertips. What can they do? So one of the things that we've found is if they get stuck with static is just to fan the sheet piles before you put them onto the deck of that laminator. Just take them and fan them really good. Break them open, get some air going in there. And the other thing is if you have an air jogger that has a blow air on it with a jogger, you can put them on that jogger and blow air into them. That, for a small shop, that if you don't have these humidity controls available, that can be a huge assistance to you just to really take it a next step forward to dealing with that static off the feed tray of your laminator or your folder.
The ionizing joggers are very key, aren't they? Especially from a feeding standpoint. Obviously you can't remove moisture instantaneously, but the ionizing joggers definitely help with the static of digital sheets that we're becoming also familiar with.
So I guess there's just one other area I think we were just going to touch on is that we are assembling ourselves, always evolving, but we have a great team of subcontract service techs behind our backs as well. There are wingmen just as much as Dave and I and anyone else on this team are, and they are quality guys of integrity, and we can utilize them just right in your locale to service equipment. It's especially so up here in the north, but we're working on developing it down in the US as well, remote techs. So if you guys do have any questions or you want to do anything with preventative maintenance, you want to set up a schedule, say you take a pod topic or take the Rhino Tough tornado, and you want to set up a routine schedule where we just come in couple of times a year, pull the panels, look it over, definitely reach out to us because we're here to back you up, and that's what we want.
And as the old saying goes, isn't it, an ounce of ointment is worth a pound of cure? So the importance of preventative maintenance that they referred to, when you're pushing the limits, the clock is ticking, job's got to get out, the machinery goes down, that's not the apropos time for that to happen. So there's a lot to be said for preventative maintenance, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
One thing I just want to throw in is that almost every machine that we sell has wear parts. And whether that's feeding fingers on a Horizon collator or suction cups on a Bagel Systems DigiFab, a lot of shops wait until they break to replace them. And that could be in the middle of a really important job, and then they don't have it in stock. So even, we'd love you to use us, but even just making your own schedule, making sure that you have the spares of the common wear parts, and making sure your operators are checking them and periodically, fixing them, taking them off the pile feeder before they actually rip and tear, and replacing them. So you're not adjusting the machine so much. You can get up and running faster. So maybe just creating a schedule, some basic things, or having our guys come in and do it for you. But relying on a schedule rather than break fix. So that way, when it does go down, you have the spares in stock.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's as simple as, like you said, sucker feed. I've been in situations where there's, customers are struggling. You walk back there and you're like, man, you got like 3 sucker feet here that got great big tears in them. You guys got any spares? Because that might help us out here a lot.
The other thing is just to touch on too is that we're out there to support you guys. If you have an in-house maintenance man that wants a walkthrough on maintenance on some of the equipment that we sell and support, absolutely reach out to us, and we can back you guys up that way too. If you we can put your in-house tech your in-house guy through a quick walkover. Check this. Here's where we found the trouble points. And that's actually a very powerful thing that we've done for a few companies as well, is we've empowered their in-house tech to know how to go in and do preventative maintenance on that machine. Well, I don't see any more questions come in. Just really, again, appreciate everybody's interest in following along with us for this day. Oh, is there another question there?
One's just come in here now, Daryl. I'll read it off and maybe you can comment. Since we have a pod topic and the paper started going in crooked lately, we have cleaned the bottom roller and adjusted feed rollers as instructed. Adjusting pressure didn't help either, so does the bottom roller go bad, causing it to go in wrong? We've used it a lot since we bought it. Anything else we can try? Could you speak as to that?
Is it an auto feed or is it the hand feed?
Auto.
That's an important thing for us to know here at this point. An auto feed, okay. So there's a number of things. There is a couple of little brush rollers right at the front of the feed table. If those brush rollers, the pressure on them can be adjusted. If those are not adjusted equally balanced, they can cause the sheet to skew right out of the feed tray, and it's very difficult for the machine to correct it after that. You want to just be able to spin those wheels gently. You want to be just touching the roller underneath them, but you don't want a lot of pressure on them. You do want them equal. And yes, rollers can get worn, but not something we've run into. Usually it's more feed guides and alignments and the setup on the feeder on the auto that is where we've gone in and done some adjustments and found it to correct. But be glad, Dave, of what you could say to support that.
Those are all good ideas, Daryl. Some of the other things that we thought of is, as you were talking, is they can check that feed roller and see it, or the nip roller, and see if it's out of balance just by putting some laminate on either side of it, compressing and just pulling it out and see if it's unbalanced. Have you, speaking to the customer right now, have you been draining your compressor regularly? If you haven't, and it's, you got a lot of moisture in there and stuff, you could have some valves that are sticking and not coming up. Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, I would definitely start by putting some equal size strips under each side of the pressure roll, engaging the pressure roll and seeing if they can pull out equally. That'll tell you right there if you got one strip that's pulling out and pulling right out and the other strip's nice and tight, then we got an imbalanced roll for some reason. Now again, it could be a piston that's not going up quite the same, dirt in the line to the piston or something like that, or it could potentially be a bad roll, but I don't think it is.
Or even a worn pull roller.
If we found a bad roll, typically what would happen is that the sheet would start to skew after it's headed in underneath the main roller. If it's skewing off to the side right off the feed tray before it's even touched the roller, then that's the defining way to tell whether it's a feeder issue or an actual roller issue.
Another thing you can look at, because I just saw you said it's starts out straight and it's halfway through, is to look at your pole roller. Not actually your pressure roller, but the pole roller that's afterwards. I believe that machine has a switch on it that can engage or disengage that pole roller. You might just, where you would normally put it on for sleeking, you might just try running it in that with the switch off and see if that issue goes away. It won't cut well, if at all, with the switch off for your pressure roller, but it'll at least tell you, hey, it's the pressure roller or it's the pole roller.
Okay, we're kind of at time, so if this customer can just maybe put in the chat box their contact name. The team here, obviously, this is the benefit and advantage of having Daryl and Dave and a lot of experience. We can bounce things back and forth. So 2 heads are better than 1 for sure. So make sure you reach out to the team directly and we'll get that resolved. But just want to say a big thank you.
Bob, it really shows the strength of our technical team. They've seen a little bit of dialogue here happening between them just now. And I reckon this could have gone on for another 20 minutes to make sure this customer fully gets the question fully resolved. But that's what Skandacor wants to bring to all our customers, isn't it? Is that level of technical support to make sure your equipment is working at its peak performance.
Absolutely.
One last thing I'd like to actually to mention is, and it's kind of goes back to something Walla was saying earlier today about don't be afraid to speak up. You know, we've been there, we fix your machine, everything's great, we leave, and then, you know, 2 days later it's doing something different or it's doing something the same. And, you know, he was just in here, it was working great when he was here. Man, I don't necessarily want to bother him again. Don't be afraid to speak up. I can only help you guys if we know there's a problem. So, you know, while we don't want any customers to have problems, we also want to know when you do, because we can't help you if we don't know.
So I think that wraps up our session here on keeping the shop running smoothly. Appreciate everybody staying on to listen, and I think we'll just hand it off to the rest of the team now to move on to our digital label production and embellishment session. Thank you.